The goal is to not let the reef die. So I would say the rule number one is never let us take nature that far where there is nothing left to work with. So there are ways to invigorate coral reefs that have been damaged by either human activities or by, say, a grounding of a ship. You know, you can plant corals. Corals are amazing. You can cut them into many pieces. They are clones, these pieces, of the big original colony, and you could plant those on the reef, and you can reinvigorate, really essentially through a farming of the corals, and the coral farms now coming to be all over the world. So, but you know, if I had one thing to say, it's, you know, lobby everybody to reduce fossil fuels. Let's stop the problem, let's stop the damage to reef before it creates the problem of having no reef at all.
And a few years ago, through the Hawaii Coral Reef Initiative, we actually had a company perform a survey of the community of what we call willingness to pay, meaning how important are coral reefs to you and their health. And the results were very surprising to me. They looked at various groups of people, including those that identified as rarely going to the beach, less than once a month. When they go to the beach, they just sit on the sand and they don't go in the water, and that they never really stick their head under the water at all. But when the question came up, how do you value reefs and how much do you think we should invest in protecting them, it was very high. And I thought it was a mistake in the survey. And I went back and said, something's not right here. These are people who don't use the reef, they don't snorkel on the reef, they don't even see the reef, and yet they valued it high. Can you go back in and check the demographic and figure out what went wrong? And they called a number of the people that were involved in these phone surveys, and they said, you self-identified as not really using the reef, yet you valued it high. Was this a mistake? And it was very interesting to me as people said, I don't have to see it to need to know that it's okay. If I'm driving over the Pali or the Like in the morning and I see the ocean, I just need to know it's okay. If it's not for me, I need to know it's okay for my kids. And in retrospect, it's not that surprising. I think it is one of the nice things about humans that we can appreciate things. And that starts with individuals. The recent paper, again, on sunscreen, there are alternatives to the sunscreens that are known to be damaging to coral reefs. There are better activities we can do on land to prevent erosion and sedimentation. We can restrict the kinds of pollutants we use on land that will eventually end up in the ocean. We can work together to not only establish marine protected areas, but to enforce them as a community so that we don't have to limit ourselves to the 3 or 4 officers on island who possibly can patrol the area, but to be able to do it through peer-to-peer and through voluntary actions that help the reef come back as well.
And we need to have people pay attention. There's so many competing needs and interests for the limited resources, financial resources that we have as a state. And so if there isn't a voice speaking for the coral silently dies.
So there's no one thing that we should really be doing. We should be doing everything we can to protect our reef. And, you know, from the global to the local, we should be acting to protect our reef where we live.